This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Welcome, scholars and laymen, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Repub, Democrats, Independents, anarchists, communists, socialists, whoever, to another wonderful edutainment, infotainment, educational, empowering, and enriching edition of The Artivist Thinks. Now, this is a special edition. Like all of them are really special, but today we're doing The Artivist Reviews. It's a movie review. It's one that's very controversial about a movie called Chiraq, or Chi-Raq, which is Spike Lee's latest, people might question greatest, but I got a lot to tell my own thoughts about this movie because I seen it on Saturday, this past weekend, opening weekend. It opened on December 4th, which is also the 46th anniversary, or was the 46th anniversary of the death or assassination or crucifixion by the state of Chairman Fred Hampton Sr., the BPP leader of Illinois. He was assassinated. 4 in the morning, police raided his apartment on the west side of Chicago, December 4th, 1969. He was asleep in his bed next to his pregnant fiancee, who would have his namesake, Fred Hampton Jr., on December 29th, 1969. But his father was actually executed by the Chicago Police Department on orders of the state attorney's office with help from the FBI. So it was a true Black Messiah crucifixion. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that last episode, one of the last episodes. But I just want to let you understand that this movie, Chiraq, we talks about the situation in Chicago. You know, Chiraq is Chicago and Iraq put together because, like, it's a war zone in certain parts of Chicago. So that's why they call it Chiraq. The rappers name it that. I think Chief Keef is credited with the Chiraq label. Chief Keef, the notorious or infamous or famous, whatever you want to call him, drill rapper. Special type of rap out of Chicago. Machine gun rapping. Okay, so let's get back on point. We're talking about this controversial movie called Chiraq, which is supposed to be a satirical ode from Greek times. It's inspired by the Greek play written by Aristophanes, who was the Shakespeare or Woody Allen, whatever, of his times. He wrote this play, or Spike Lee of his times, I guess. He wrote this play called Lysistrata. Eliza Estrada is the female lead in the play, and her goal is to lead a sex strike to stop the war back in that time. And in this movie, Chiraq, the lead is also Lysistrata, who is played by the sister from Dear White People, that beautiful Ebony sister. She is so beautiful. She is very gorgeous. In my mind, I thought she was a Nika Rose at first, but she's like a Nika Rose little sister, I guess. But she is gorgeous, and I look forward to seeing her in more films. But I think she did a phenomenal job of the lead in this movie. But she was the one that came up with the idea in the movie, Lysistrata, of having a sex strike to stop the gang war conflict in Chicago. Now, let me just put together some thoughts of mine as I talk about Chiraq. It reminded me of a Quentin Tarantino job. Quentin Tarantino is known for his mashups. When I say mashups, what I mean is by how he takes like different styles from different directors that he admire and he put it into his movies. Like, he's not necessarily an innovator or originator, but he's like the P. Diddy of movie directors. He takes a little bit from Scorsese, a little bit from blaxploitation, a little bit from here and there, and he makes him a movie. And I would say with Spike Lee, when I was looking at this movie, there's a couple things that came to mind. It's like it was a mashup of, remind me of She Gotta Have It, Bamboozled, and also Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pans, Guys and Dolls, the movie with Sky Masterson played by Marlon Brando and Nathan Detroit played by Frank Sinatra. That's a gang movie. that was based on the Broadway play Guys and Dolls, and also Robin and the Seven Hoods, which is a game movie, I guess a satire from the 60s, starring Frank Sinatra in the lead as Robin. And I guess it's a twist on Robin Hood. And Sammy Davis Jr. is in there, and I guess Dean Martin was playing the role of Little John. But it reminded me of all those mixed Guys and Dolls, Robin and the Seven Hoods, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, She Gotta Have It, Bamboozled, and even a little bit of Red Hook, the independent film that Spike Lee did, which I thought was very underrated. I thought, even though it had a limited budget, that it was pretty good for what it was. And also, I like to include in the mashup of this movie about Chiraq, it also reminds me a little bit of School Days as well. And when you see the movie, you'll understand why I say it reminds me a little bit of School Days, in addition to the other movies I just named. And Spike Lee, he kind of remind me, because regardless of what you may think about some of his movies and stuff, the man has left a tremendous legacy. He is a artistic genius. I would say he is an artistic genius. He's brilliant in his own way. He got his own way of doing movies, kind of like Woody Allen on Anybody. He got his own vision. You might not always agree with what he has, but it's kind of like, look at some Spike Lee movies, kind of like looking at the discography of Miles Davis. A lot of people like Miles' early stuff, is hip, is swinging, but it's some of his later stuff that really challenges you. And if you might not care for it the first listen around, but listens over time, and with the passage of time, you can saw that, hey, he was on to something with Bitches Brew or a lot of his other later stuff. Okay, so I think that Spike Lee, with a lot of his later movies, it might not be your cup of tea. It might not be a Malcolm X or a Jungle Fever or Do the Right Thing or even a Clockers or but there is something to it. I wouldn't totally dismiss it. And also, some other thoughts I have, because people were criticizing that it made fun of what's going on in Chicago. It made light of the situation, which is not necessarily a laughing matter if you look at the reality of what's going on in Chicago. But I also say this: can't no movie, whether Hollywood or independent produced, black directed or cast, drama, comedy, dramedy, horror, musical, or documentary, can be expected to solve the problems of black folks in 2 hours, more or less. Let me say this once again. Can't no movie, whether Hollywood or independent produced, black directed or cast, drama, comedy, dramedy, horror, musical, or documentary, can be expected to solve the problems of black folks in 2 hours, more or less. Okay? But this is the thing I also picked on with Spike Lee, and y'all should think about this. I really did feel that Spike Lee's Chiraq bails out white supremacy, disrespects Fred Hampton, and casts White Daddy as Saviour. The same old, okay? But also, I would suggest that people see it and, come away with their own opinion about the piece, because it's art. And unlike, Spike Lee, he said he didn't want to see Django. He didn't want to legitimize what Tarantino was doing. But to criticize something you never seen or experienced for yourself is really doing yourself a disservice, because then it encourages groupthink. And this is the problem that we have a lot in this society, that people are just going along and getting along and not questioning anything or everything. It is healthy to question things. It is healthy to be a little bit cynical and skeptical of things. Because how can you develop critical thinking if you just go along to get along? And also in the movie, Spike Lee, the guy who directed Four Little Girls and When the Levees Broke and Malcolm X and all that stuff, he does try to offer a solution. Like in the words of Harry Truman, the only thing new in the world is the history that you don't know. So he basically reached back into ancient times to come up with a solution for a very modern day problem. But what I don't like is that, Spike Lee, if you're going to release this movie, this is like Amazon Studios' first movie. And how it's funny how America always use black folks as the guinea pig or laboratory rats for their experiments on innovations. And so they using Spike Lee. I feel like this is like a Trojan horse. So he's talking about, these two gangs in Chicago. One called the Trojans, the other one's called the Spartans. The Trojans is led by Cyclops, which is played by Wesley Snipes. And in the movie, Wesley Snipes remind me of a 5th grade classmate I had back in South Memphis named Marlon. He looked like Marlon. He lived like Marlon. You can tell Wesley had fun with that, role. But he reminded me of my 5th grade classmate, Marlon, out of South Memphis at Dunn Elementary. Shout out to brother Marlon if he's listening to this, because the internet is worldwide. And also the other gang, the Spartans, led by Nick Cannon. And Nick Cannon, to me, did a great job. I think people said they couldn't imagine him playing a gang leader or a gangbanger or a gangster. But he actually pulled it off, because what he did was he channeled his inner Tupac. As a matter of fact, he quoted Tupac several times. It was like him and his girlfriend, Liz Estrada. She was quoting Biggie. He was quoting Tupac. Because like that Jay-Z song, Venus versus Mars. He a Tupac guy. She a Biggie girl. But they connect, So, his namesake in the movie is Chiraq. So he's called Chi-Raq. He's a gangster rapper, a drill rapper, whatever you want to call it, in the fashion of a Chief Keef or whatever. And also I thought the soundtrack was pretty good. It had a bounce, had some Chi-Town flavor, R. Kelly, but I think Nick Cannon did a good job. It kind of reminded me of when Terrence Howard did the Hustle and Flow soundtrack when he did, It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp. So he got that little bit of that flavor. But Nick Cannon, he got talent. He might not be like, to me, he's not really a ha-ha funny or stand-up comedian, whatever, but I like the fact that he challenges himself to put himself in position like he wanted to play Richard Pryor. But anyway, I'm going off topic. But I think that Spike Lee is very ambitious with this movie. I think people don't understand it's a very ambitious thing that he's doing. He tried to, come up with a solution to a modern day problem. He's doing this thing. But like I said, it bails out white supremacy, because it put the onus of what's going on in Chicago on black folk. And it does not do a great job of giving historical background as to why Chicago gang problem is the way it is. Because Chicago is a gangster city, it's a gangster town, and it has an epic black gangster history. I mean, nobody has a black gangster history in this country like Chicago. Chicago's black gangster history is epic, and no one can touch it. Because it's parts New York City, parts L.A., Los Angeles, with heavy doses of Dirty South. If you think about the fact that two of the biggest gang leaders from Chicago, Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort, came from Mississippi. Then you go back a generation or so to Teddy Rowe, who has connections to Arkansas and Louisiana. This is the cat that took on the Chicago outfit, the Al Capone gang, with Sam Giancana guys. He got into a firefight. He was the Black Robin Hood of Bronzeville. His story has yet to be told. And he's from Louisiana, connections to Arkansas. Then also you got the famous Jones brothers, one of his peers. The Jones brothers, they ran policy. That's the numbers up in Chicago for years. They brothers out of Vicksburg. 4 brothers from Vicksburg, Mississippi, was making millions of dollars off of numbers and policy. So you got a lot of history that Spike Lee did not even delve to. It's very rich about black gangsters in Chicago. But the thing about it is, we got black gangbangers and gangsters doing in Chicago what white gangsters was doing back in the 20s and 30s. Getting the drive-bys and all this stuff. The white boys invented the drive-by. Understand? The white boys invented that. The Chicago typewriter, the machine gun, all that stuff. As a matter of fact, O'Hare Airport, Butch O'Hare, the World War II hero who died during World War II. The airport is named after him, but his father was Eddie Fess O'Hare. Eddie O'Hare was a lawyer and a business partner of Al Capone. He actually became a government witness against Al Capone. And on the week when Al Capone was released from Alcatraz back in 1939, he was killed in a drive-by. His fiance ended up marrying Frank Nitti. Frank Nitti was the guy who took over for Al Capone over the gang in Chicago. So I can't make this shit up. So O'Hare Airport The guy's father was Al Capone's lawyer and business partner who double-crossed Al Capone and ended up getting killed in 1939, and his fiance ended up marrying Frank Nitti. I can't make this shit up, people. But like, yeah, but he didn't really get into all what makes Chicago Chicago. What people don't understand is there's this certain pockets of Chicago that's being terrorized. So it should let you know that it's a system thing. It's a systemic thing. It's not over. It was all over Chicago. Like, let's say they was doing all that shit on the Magnificent Mile. It'll be a state of emergency. But it's controlled chaos. It's controlled anarchy. And it's the powers that be that are in power. Like, I believe the biggest gang in Chicago is the mayor office. Like, you know, Spike Lee made no mention of Fred Hampton in his movie. How you going to release this movie on the 46th anniversary of Fred Hampton's crucifixion by the state? I mean, he was killed on orders of the state attorney. Basically, Edward Hanrahan signed his death certificate or death warrant. And then they lied about it because they said it was a shootout, but it was a shoot-in because the only bullet came from the gun that was held in Mark Clark's hand, the defense captain for the Black Panther Party of Illinois. He was just 22 years old. He was sleeping on the couch. The police shot into the place. They shot him in the chest. The gun he held in his hand went off. And that's the only bullet that came from a Panther. So it was luckily that anybody survived that quote-unquote shootout on the Panther side. And so the Panther allowed the people to tour the apartment. And one elder from the South said it was like a northern lynching. Okay? So basically the state, the FBI, the Chicago police, the state attorney, even the mayor office, killed a 21-year-old citizen in his sleep. And Spike Lee didn't talk about that because Fred Hampton was trying to get the gangs to a peace accord. He was actually trying to politicize the gangs. You know, he was in the ear of Jeff Fort, of the Black Pea Stone Nation, the Blackstone Rangers. He was in the ear of all these Black Street gangs. He actually engineered a truce. And so he had to go. So I wish Spike Lee would have touched upon that. He showed, you know, because there's no place in America that produces black icons like Chicago. You know, Michael Jordan, Harold Washington, Fred Hampton. You think about a number of people. Oprah Winfrey, Johnson, you know, Johnson H. Johnson and Johnson Publishing Empire. You know, think about all the great black icons that come out of Chicago. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, I mean, Chicago is a very interesting place. I think Chi-Raq is a little bit too topical for somebody like me who's interested in history. But at the same time, if you are really interested in history, Chi-Raq does a great job of getting you interested in knowing more about Chicago. So I think it does that. And some other things I like to point out. You know, the white daddy complex. You know, like the John Cusack character is based on Michael Pfleger, Father Pfleger. He's a well-known and respected person in Chicago. Well-known, respected person in Chicago. And he also, you know, you can hear him talking at the beginning of Chiraq after Nick Cannon's Praying for My City, which has a great bombastic, hypnotizing effect. You know, it gets you really into Chiraq. You know, Chiraq, you know, people criticize it for being uneven. I think that's a good thing because, you know, I think it's good. It works for this film because, you know, just the topic that you're trying to cover, that, you know, it's just like 2 hours does not do what's going on in Chicago justice. So, but like I said, it gets you interested. So dealing with Michael Pfleger character, John Cusack, the white savior, the Tarzan among the apes, so to speak. You know, it's like, you know, white people always needs to save black people. You know, we got even in Django, why they like, you know, the white guy, the German guy, was Django's quote unquote savior. You know, and I think that you should be able to tell a black story without white people playing major roles in it. You know, it's like the paraphrase where Ralph Ellison was talking about the Invisible Man. You know, tell your own story so you won't be a marginalized or invisible character in it. We should be able to learn to tell our own stories without being a marginalized or invisible character. And, you know, people say, well, is this cultural appropriation what Spike Lee is doing with this Chiraq because it's based on a Greek play? Well, I said, who was the real Greeks? Where did the Greeks get their information from? Where did they get their culture from? Okay? It's interesting because these street gangs in the movie, they're like black Greek fraternities. Like they're named Spartans and the Trojans. What about the Nubians and Watusis or something like that? Why the Greek names? One thing I did like, we talking about the white man savior. One thing I did like when Sister Liz Estrada took over the Arsenal, which was a homage to John Brown taking over the U.S. Arsenal at Harper's Ferry back in 1859, October 16, 1859, which led to the American Civil War. And that's Baba Gregory's favorite white boy in history. John Brown's body is a murder in the grave. So that was a cool homage to that, and there was a lot of things on that level. In that hysterical scene where she actually overcame the white commander, this small white dude with a big man complex named I call him General King Kong or something like that. And it reminded me of the white guy that led the arsenal of Theodore Bilbo. And they said, who the fuck is Theodore Bilbo? Well, take a look. It's on online. He was a small cracker from Mississippi who was U.S. Senator. He was a former governor of Mississippi and also a U.S. Senator from Mississippi. I guess he one of them Dixiecrats back in the 40s. Theodore Bilbo. He kind of had this thing about, he actually, respected Marcus Garvey. He agreed with Marcus Garvey. He wrote a book about, sending 12 million black people back to Liberia, or sending them to Liberia. Liberia was an African country founded by America. It was an American colony. So he agreed with Marcus Garvey and wanted to send black folks to Liberia, 12 million Americans. So, yeah, that scene with her and the guy that, King Kong was very fascinating. And it also, talked about people, basically made an illusion of people that carry big guns got little dicks. So, I just thought that was interesting because he had a cannon called Whistle Dick or something like that, Whistling Dick or something like that. But it's crazy. But yeah, like Dr. King said, America is the greatest purveyor of violence on the planet. Because if you even think about, I remember years ago when they interviewed Saddam Hussein, I think it was 2020 or one of those shows like that. They went to interview Saddam Hussein back in the 90s. And it was like going to Yo MTV Cribs. You look at his movie collection, you got all these movies from America, Godfather, Terminator, Scarface. It's like he was a gangster rapper. So, America is great at exporting violence and importing drugs. America is great at exporting violence and importing drugs, as well as guns. So this is why you got Chi-Raq. And also, another thing, like what, Spike Lee could touch upon the fact that is a major drug cartel from Mexico that's actually supplying most of the drugs in Chicago. And they are allowed to supply these drugs by the DEA. So who are the really big drug traffickers in America? Are they Pookie and Tukey on the block? Or are they, the DEA, the CIA? And all this stuff is online. You can just look all this stuff up. Look up Fast and Furious. I ain't talking about the movie with Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. I'm talking about... y'all just look at Fast and Furious, Obama and all them. So I'm just saying, fact is always stranger than fiction. So, Liz Estrada is interesting. I think the character, like I said, she did a great job. Then I like Saviour Jackson's Dolomites. And he knew right away it was Dolomite. He was paying homage to Dolomite, a real unsung of black culture, of the black subculture. So Dolomites is interesting because Samuel Jackson is Samuel Jackson. It's funny how you look at these great iconic actors, no matter how great their talent is, it's like it's a tragedy to it because you could get so well known and great at your craft is that you end up just being a parody of yourself. Like when I saw Samuel Jackson, he's not really playing a character, he's just playing himself. When I see Denzel now, he's not really playing a character, he's just being himself, or Robert De Niro or Al Pacino. I mean, they're so well known, so well documented, so heralded that you just look at them as playing themselves. Morgan Freeman. It's like you don't see the character they're playing, they're just playing themselves on certain rare occasions. But I thought it was cool. So if you ask me, I think it's very watchable. And I'll look at it again. It's a great discussion starter. Don't expect it to solve or world hunger or end wars, or end the wars of the world. But it's a good conversation piece. Like any great artwork, I think people should look at it or see it for themselves. Because like art is meant to be seen, is meant to be discussed. And I think Spike Lee, in spite of himself, is a great artist. But yeah, that's how I feel. But like, yeah, but the thing about it is, I think get back to the white savior thing with the Father Flagger figure. Like he was the one that told them about the history of the black church. I thought that was interesting. Like, you know, the women need to be taught the history of the black church to the white man. And the reason why we got the black churches is because of the white man. Once again, you know, Spike Lee does not, you know, he mentions South Carolina and Mother Emanuel, but he did not mention what the white people did to that church that was founded by Digmont Vesey. I knew, just looking at the coverage over the summer, that white folks were still afraid to say Digmont Vesey name or VC name on camera during news interviews. It took the black activists and historians to bring up his name as a founding member of their church, and the white folks burnt their church down, so that for years they had to hold their church services in secret and underground. So this is things we want to talk about, the white terrorism that's on black people, like the 4 little girls getting blown up in Birmingham, the recent church burnings this summer in Memphis, Darius Stewart's getting killed by the police, taken from a traffic stop and moved up onto church property to be assassinated by the Memphis Police Department, or Sandra Bland, that infamous murderous traffic stop she was involved in, happened on church grounds in Prairie View. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, family, and it ain't all Spike's fault, okay? But you got to question these things, like why will you release this on December 4th and not mention Fred Hampton at all, or talk about the problems of police terrorism in Chicago for decades, you know, so. And then the Father Flagger piece, you know, a white savior, a Tarzan, whatever. I'm just really looking forward to this Nate Parker, directed, produced, and starring in Nat Turner. I'm really interested to see what he pulls out with that. And that's another question. Why all these black movies now? These quote-unquote black slave movies or black history movies now? Because there's a movie about Marcus Garvey coming out. And a lot of folks seem to be suspect about all these movies coming out dealing with black touchy subjects. And I'll say this, that the universal God is bigger than any God that they can produce in Hollywood. And to me, it's just time to tell these stories. You know, now's the time, because Hollywood is limited in their imagination, especially when it comes to black people. And you look at the real story, black history is greater than Hollywood fiction. The truth about what black folks been through and going through is a better story than anything they can make believe. It's better than Star Wars. It's better than any movie they could ever come up with their imagination, because black history is real. You know, they talk about Steve Jobs. Make a movie about Mansa Musa. He was the wealthiest individual that ever lived. Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa. Make a movie about Mansa Musa. All gold, everything. Before Trinidad James. All gold, everything. Look him up. The wealthiest person that ever lived. Mansa Musa. Timbuktu. So, you know, our stories, it's now the time for us to tell these stories. And now with technology the way it is, it's cheaper to tell those stories. Yeah, you're going to spend a nickel, a dollar, whatever, but you have better ways to tell your story without having a great overhead in terms of budget. I mean, the dude that did the documentary about the musician called Sugar Man, Searching for Sugar Man or Looking for Sugar Man, he won an Oscar. And he basically did most of that movie on his cell phone. You know, he used some apps and stuff, shot it and stuff like that. So, black people, there is no excuse why we can't tell our own stories. As many of y'all be uploading World Star hip hop videos and YouTube videos and all this stuff, there's no reason why we can't tell our stories. Because when you tell your story, you telling our story. When you tell your story, you telling our story. So with Chi-Raq, you know, I said that, you know, Chiraq must have been Spike Lee's blood sacrifice for the Lifetime Achievement Oscar. I said that jokingly, but you know, Spike Lee, when it's said and done, he had a great run. You know, like the Malcolm X movie. I have problems with the Malcolm X movie. Like Dick Gregory talked about how, you know, how he portrayed Malcolm X. Yeah, he was Detroit Red, but the thing about it is, the way this system works, you know, it likes to find dirt on our icons, on our people. It loves to fester and wallow in the mud and the dirt and to splash feces on the canvas when it comes to our people, because we produce some phenomenal people. We produce biblical people. We the people of the Bible, y'all. Come on now. That's why it's strange when you look at movies like God's Egypt and stuff like that, and the Moses movie. These were black people. And when I mean black people, I ain't mean no light skin, but I mean darker than Wesley Snipes. These are black people that make Wesley Snipes look light skinned, okay? The black folks that they're making these movies about, gods of Egypt, Moses, you were black people. Now I ain't talking about no mixed people. I mean, there's a documentary came out. They had found the bones of Cleopatra's sister. And I believe it was Turkey. You can look this up online probably. And one of the anthropologists, one of the forensic people, this British lady, when they interviewed her, because they're trying to figure out, what was her ethnic background? What was Cleopatra's sister's ethnic background? And, in the interview, I ain't gonna never forget this. He said, well, now we know that Cleopatra was African. And then she stopped and paused and said, no, let me emphasize. Not only was she African, she was like black as in sub-Saharan African black. So they let you know what time it is, people. It's certain things that I know that I don't need no evidence to know. It's just something we got, you got to access their third eye, that pineal gland that we have, that melanin. Help that to use that as your Google sometimes. Use your melanin as your Google. Okay, but yeah, I'm getting all over the place like Spike Lee's Chiraq. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie for what it was. And I think a lot of times we as black people get too emotional about the wrong things. The best way you want to do this is what would Oscar Machado do? What would Nate Parker done? Nate Parker basically took the Nat Turner story and he said, I'm going to call this the birth of a nation. He flipped it on those crackers, right? Because crackers are good at wordplay. White supremacy is good at double talk and wordplay. So when people start looking up the birth of a nation, they might see this Nate Parker movie coming out about Nat Turner. Just like they was doing the Confessions of Nat Turner. How they flip it on Nat Turner. The Confession of Nat Turner, it was the white dude, the lawyer back in the day, he allegedly was taking the Confession of Nat Turner. Then the white boy, James Baldwin's good friend, he wrote a book called The Confessions of Nat Turner in the 60s. So you go to the black bookstore, and he said, let me read that Confessions of Nat Turner. Instead of you getting you the original Confession of Nat Turner, they gave you the white boy version, where they got Nat Turner as gay and lusting after white women. Not the original version, which is also suspect, but it doesn't show Nat Turner being gay and lusting after white women. So you got to flip it on them. So this is brilliant. And also, one more thing I want to touch upon is Spike Lee's use of a sex strike as the solution to solving the violence, the gang violence in Chicago. And I know a lot of people, I talked over the years, they always play about how Spike Lee portrays women in his films, or their lack of a portrayal, like they're very one-dimensional in a lot of people's eyes. I think that in this movie, he does step it up in terms of how he portrays females, but also he did Girl 6. So I just think that Spike Lee can't win for losing, can't please everybody. But I want to touch upon this fact that America has no problem in objectifying black women. Never has, never will. Because you look at, how did gynecology start? J. Marion Sims, this cracker doctor from South Carolina, he's the father of gynecology. What did he do? He used to experiment on black women. He used to just mutilate and terrorize their vaginas, put all types of things in their vagina. He said that black folks didn't feel pain. So these women, they was getting tortured. Their bodies were being tortured by this demented white man with no anesthesia. You look at what Henrietta Lacks. She a healer cells. I mean, that book that was written, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Here, this sister died in Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore in their colored people ward back in the early 50s at the age of 29, from ovarian cancer, and her cells live on forever, replicated throughout the world. They're immortal. They have started, industries, made white corporations billions of dollars, yet her family still resides in Baltimore with no health care, living basically in poverty. So this is very real, the exploitation of black folks by this American murder machine, or the sterilization of black people or black women being sterilized. Like you look at the fact that people like Fannie Lou Hamer, she was sterilized by the state of Mississippi against her own wishes. Or how recently it was discovered in California that women prisoners of color were being sterilized by the state of California. and this is recent. This is not something that happened 50 or 100 years ago. But even in the 20th century, I believe he had like 21 states that legalized sterilization. That legalized the sterilization of women, so in many cases against their own will. It's a woman out of North Carolina named Sister Elaine Riddick. She had a baby when she was a teenager. I believe it was a product of a rape. And the state of North Carolina sterilized her without permission. And this is she's still around. She's still thriving. But she was done a horrible disservice by the state. So you talk about Hitler, but who gave Hitler these ideas? And also, who funded Hitler? So this is research you all can do. I'm not going to talk about this during a movie review, but I just bring all these things up. When people talk about how, black women's bodies are being objectified. But, the sex strike came from the original play, Lysistrata, written by Aristophanes. And also, they used it, I think a sister in Liberia actually used it to end the civil war in Liberia about 12 years ago. I think back in 2003, she urged her fellow sisters in that country to participate in a sex strike. And I guess it works. But the thing about it is, you can't please everybody. But like I said, I commend Spike Lee for bringing it up. And I think that Chiraq, to be honest with you, in spite of his flaws and shortcomings and suspicions, it's going to do a lot of good for people, because what is sometimes meant for your harm can actually be for your good. Sometimes the best way to cure or eliminate an illness is to be injected with the virus. Sometimes, once again, the best way to cure or eliminate an illness is to be injected with the virus. So black folks, I encourage everybody who have a problem with this movie or whatever movie, or like what Toni Morrison said, if you can't find the book you're looking for, you write the book. I encourage you out there to tap into the artistic genius that God has endowed you with and create something for your people. So yeah, no, I'm not bashing Spike in this thing, because there's nothing to bash. It's so easy, because it's like a nigga battle royale. It's like the opening of Invisible Man. We got all the niggas fighting the ring blinded, and the last nigga standing, he's crowned by white supremacy. They throw dollars and shit on the floor for you pick him up. That's how Jack Johnson started his boxing career, the first black heavyweight champion of the world. A lot of battle royales now in Texas, where he was the last nigga standing, and he was collecting his bounty at the end. And even it made reference to that in the James Brown movie that was produced by white people. A lot of people mad because the James Brown movie was directed, written, and produced by white people. Mick Jagger was one of the producers. But it's on us to tell these stories. There should have been a Sam Cooke movie out. They should have came out right after Ray. And the thing about white people is, even if it take them generations or years to make something, they're going to make it happen. Like the dude who did the Ray movie. It took him years. But he waited for the right person to come along and Jamie Foxx to play Ray. And he waited for the right timing. It came out right after Ray Charles died. But Ray Charles had a hand. He had approval. He gave him approval. He approved of Jamie Foxx portraying him. So, black people, I want to encourage everybody in 2016 to step it up if you black and tell our stories. There need to be a movie about Teddy Rowe, because Spike Lee did not touch on Chicago's black history like he should have touched it. Yeah, he mentioned Harold Washington, showed the statue of Michael Jordan, but it's so much richness in Chicago. The city was founded by a black man. It's a soul city. It's a soul city. Like I said, it produces black icons. Barack Obama could not have been fast-tracked to president anywhere but Chicago, because it's a gangster city too. It's the city of big shoulders, okay? So, I think I covered everything. I know I was all over the place, but like I said, I think I made my points about Chiraq. And I also had a lot of guest stars, Dave Chappelle, whatever, guest appearances. It was pretty it's funny. But, what's going on, like I said, Chicago's not a laughing matter, but I will encourage you, once again, to see the movie. So if you like what I had to say, you got something out of it, please feel free to subscribe or even donate, because I got a lot more to give you all. And I feel like, I'm just so passionate. I love sharing what I know with people. And it's something about being a man in the arena. People, hide behind anonymous and fake avatars online. They take pot shots at you. They think they know you, but they don't know. But thank God that I do know who I am, that I'm in my right African mind. So I don't mind, because in the end, this is a marathon. And I'm going to be the last man standing at the finish line. So thank you all. God bless. In the words of Great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep producing and pushing. I'm out.